Welcome to the Self-Growth Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Marie, a courage coach, creative soul, and adventure seeker. Since through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in 2019, I'm on a mission to help you embrace your most confident self so you can achieve your dreams too. If you're eager for deep conversations, big questions, and meaningful connections, join me on the quest to discovering how we can create a more magical and memorable life. Hello, nerds! How are you? I'm super good, and today I want to talk about something that's very, very prevalent in my community of high achievers, and it's all or nothing thinking and perfectionism. I remember the first time I went to see a therapist, one of the first things that she said as she listened to me was, you're quite of a all or nothing thinker, aren't you? And it blew me away because I'd never heard the phrase, and I instantly knew that she was 100% right and that this had been slowing me down so much. Back in the days, I was starting as a freelance designer, and I was telling her about how I wanted to put my website online, but I needed to gather everything, all of the images of every project I'd ever done in the past and make sure the website looked really good. And it seemed like this big mountain that was going to take me months and months and months. And she said to me, why don't you just do like a first imperfect version? When could you have it out and ready if you kept it simple? And I said to her, I could get it done by Christmas. And on December 21st of that year, I published my website, had so much great feedback and contracts after this. But that's all thanks to her putting her finger on my all or nothing thinking and challenging it. Otherwise, it would have taken me so much longer and it would have been such a pain in the bum. And I remember wanting to send her an email saying, look, I did it. I think I actually did send her a link to my website. I was so proud. And since then, I am a recovering perfectionist and all or nothing thinker. I've worked on it with that therapist and with my coaches. And it's been a life savior. It saved me so much time and energy and headaches. So I'm going to tell you about how to slowly but surely step out of those tendencies and why. Okay, so let's start with all or nothing thinking. And it often is similar to perfectionism, but I've separated them because I see them as two similar but different characters. So, all or nothing thinking. The best example of what that is through hiking, all right? I had never hiked for more than 4 days in a row and decided I wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. Now, lots of people told me, don't you think it'd be wiser to try like a 1 week or 2 weeks hike? And I was having none of that. It was all or nothing. The author, John Acuff, wrote in his book, Finish, he said, high achievers, and I'm paraphrasing here, high achievers have this thing about them that for something to count, it has to be difficult. And when I read that, I thought, oh my God, that's exactly it. And I have no regrets about the PCT. I'm so glad I decided to do this. And obviously, like, every flaw is also a quality in some ways. And that all or nothing way of thinking turns into a strength as well, because it means I am very determined. And that serves me sometimes, but sometimes it also gets in the way. So that's what we want to focus on. Another smaller scale example is I love to journal, right? I have so many notebooks, but back in the days, I had a tendency to want my handwriting to be really beautiful. So that I would not mess my beautiful notebook. And so if I filled in a few pages and then somehow like the words didn't look good or I smudged the ink with my hand, I would have to pull out the sheets of paper or just get rid of the notebook altogether and start a new one. Now, I don't do that anymore, but it was true for me for a long time. And now I've found tricks. Like I have 2 journals. One of them is for quick notes that I know is going to look ugly. The journal is ugly. It's like stacks of journals that my mom gives me that she finds in the house from when we were kids. And then I have this beautiful journal that I keep for when I want to write something more profound. Another example is trying to set new habits. Like, I'm going to take a walk every day for 365 days. And that's a real life example from COVID. I printed this sheet that had little circles for every day of the year that you could color in every time you did the thing you set your mind to. And so I had a colored pen next to my sheet, and I wanted to go every day, color every circle. But this kind of approach, this kind of strict approach to habit formation does not work. Why? Because your motivation will drop. Messiness will show up because we're human. It is silly to think from tomorrow, I am going to be this whole new person who wakes up early, takes a cold shower, goes to the gym. That's not how it works. That's what Carol Lowenthal calls perfectionist fantasies. You cannot will yourself into change because your primitive brain wants to conserve energy. And changing, which means carving new neural pathways in your brain, takes energy. That's not what your brain wants. Your brain wants to keep it easy, to keep your energy in case you get chased by a lion. So it's going to do what's easy, what's comfortable, what's familiar, what's known. Everything that's unknown requires more work for your brain and is not considered as a good thing. Okay? You cannot talk yourself into change with reasoning. You cannot tell yourself it's really good for you to exercise and to eat healthy. Here's why, and have like a list of 100 reasons why it's good for you. That's not how it works. Sounds good? We've all tried it. Life would be so easy if we could just read a book about why it's good for you to exercise and eat healthy and then just apply everything that the book says. That's not how the human brain works, unfortunately. Our unconscious is so much stronger. To fight the unconscious is like trying to fight gravity. I don't know if it's the best analogy because you can bring the unconscious to the surface and slowly but surely rewire your brain, but it's not as easy peasy lemon squeezy as just saying that you will. One thing you can do is to expect your motivation to drop and to plan for it. To expect your messiness to show up and a plan for it. So if you know that you're a procrastinator, or if you know that you tend to struggle with mental health, or if, like me, you know that once a month when you're on your period, and so often twice a month when you're on your period and when you're ovulating, your mood drops and you feel very much depressed, then you can plan for it, okay? Instead of using magical thinking. 2 of the main ways you can plan for it is 1, to craft the tiniest of habits, and 2, to be willing to suck and be bad at it. Initiating a new behavior is often the hardest part that requires the most effort, like moving a big boat. So instead of trying to move a big boat, you want a smaller boat. It's easier to make a U-turn with a smaller boat. Okay? So what's the smallest, crappiest version of that thing you want to achieve? That thing you want to do? It's better to make mediocre progress every day than make no progress at all. Because if you set the bar really high, like I'm going to take a 1-hour walk every day of the year, then you set yourself up for failure right away. It's not realistic. It's not aligned with how the human brain works. So you're shooting yourself in the foot. Instead, align with how the brain works and find the smallest, like I said, crappiest version of the habit that you want to form. And just the fact of getting started in the smallest ways carves the neural pathway in your brain. And then it's like as if you put your foot in the door, slowly but surely it becomes easier to enter every day. Instead of pushing the door open all at once, you slowly but surely push the door open until it becomes natural, until it becomes your new normal. It's too big a jump to go from someone who, let's say, bites their nails every time they're nervous and has been doing so for their whole lives to someone who meditates every time they're stressed. You can't just jump from one to the other and expect only your willpower to make it work, okay? So crafting the tiniest of habits looks different for everyone, and you get to choose what feels manageable and exciting for you. I'm going to give you examples. So I wanted to start running, but I'm not a runner. I don't enjoy running. So I figured, okay, I'm just going to run 5 minutes per day. What most of us do, and I've observed this with my clients, because in the beginning of Brave and Bold, there's an exercise where they make a list of their main priorities, and I get them to put one small thing into their week for each priority. But many of them don't listen to me, and they just pack their whole week with stuff. Again, that's the all or nothing way of thinking. One little thing is not enough. They want to go all in. Another example is if you want to write every day. Some people will say, okay, I'm going to write for 2 hours every day. But if that's challenging for you, then you're setting yourself up for failure. What about deciding to write 200 crappy words a day? That's it. Or one thing I've heard as well in the past is I just have to sit in front of my computer for half an hour. I don't have to write anything on the page, but I at least have to sit in front of the Word document for half an hour every day. Has to seem so stupid, so small, that you're actually gonna do it. And that goes without saying that if you end up skipping a day, you gotta promise that you're gonna have your own back and not beat yourself up. Beating yourself up is the worst idea if you want to start again. If you're afraid of the part of you that's gonna shout mean things at you when you skip a day, then you're never gonna get started. Do you see what I mean? So many people do that. I'm not going to set a goal for myself because if I fail, I'm going to hate me. But you don't have to. You can opt out of that. You can promise that you will have your own back no matter what happens, and that if you skip 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a whole week, you can always start again. Failure is only failure if you stop there. And failure is only failure if you make it mean something negative about yourself. But that's not today's point. So let me drive back to the subject. I remember when I started running for 5 minutes, one of my thoughts, because I live on the second floor and I have 2 neighbors underneath me, one of my thoughts was, oh my God, I'm going to go run for 5 minutes. They're going to see me leave the building and then come back, and they're going to think I suck. I'm such a loser for running for such a short period of time. I was trying to imagine what their thoughts would be like. Oh, she's back already? And that made me feel ashamed. But I pushed that thought to the side because thinking this way is a big risk. If you would rather do nothing than do something small or easy or messy, then you're in trouble. You gotta be okay with something small and decide that small, easy, messy is enough. That small, easy, messy is better than nothing. Then hiking 3 miles is better than 0. Then writing 5 words is better than 0. If you don't reach your goal, if you're not up to standard, quote unquote, up to standard, you have to be careful what you make it mean. Okay? Ask yourself, is this who I want to be? Do I want to be someone that chooses to do nothing because they're afraid of doing something imperfect? There is a really amazing article by Christine Carter called Here's How I Finally Got Myself to Start Exercising. And in this text, she writes, quote, The moment in which you are no longer willing to do something unambitious is the moment in which you risk everything. So go read that article. Now let's move on to perfectionism, that daily sneaky perfectionism that shows up without us even noticing. It shows up in different ways. I'm going to give you examples. It shows up when it takes you an hour to write an email. When you're rewriting every word, worrying about how the other person is going to react. It shows up, let's say you're trying to write an article or write a book. I know so many of you out there are creative nerds who dream about writing. It shows up when you're editing as you write. I remember when I was a graphic designer, I spent a lot of time working on the kitchen table, and my sister was also a freelance graphic designer who sat next to me at the kitchen table, and sometimes she would just look at me work. And there was this poster I was working on. There was green dots on the poster, and I kept moving this one dot like 1 centimeter to the left, moving it back 1 centimeter to the right, and getting really frustrated. And at one point, my sister went, "Oh my God, you are so annoying. What are you doing? Stop. No one cares about this detail. No one is going to notice except you." Perfectionism slows you down and drains your energy. And it doesn't have to. Here's how it slows you down. 1, pretty obvious. What you are doing takes more time than expected, more time than it should. Number 2, you postpone the moment of truth. You think, oh, okay, I'll finish this by the end of the day, but you postpone it because it's not perfect yet. You postpone sharing something that you created with the world because you're afraid they're gonna think it's crap. Number 3, you overthink in the shower, or overthink in the car, or overthink in your bed. And all the time you spend overthinking could be spent coming up with ideas, creating, engaging, resting. It also, number 4, creates mental exhaustion. You know that for a fact. And number 5, we have a limit to the number of decisions we can make per day. Pretty sure you've all heard the story of how Steve Jobs had only black turtlenecks and jeans in his wardrobe, and that's the case for many CEOs of big corporations, because it has been proven that the human brain has a reservoir of decision-making energy. And if you make tons of tiny, useless decisions, then you have less juice left in your reservoir to make decision on what really matters. So if you spend like 10 minutes pushing a dot around on the page, it is completely normal that you're tired at the end of the day and are not able to spend time on your hobbies or pursuing your goals. Now, why do we do this to ourselves? We know it's stupid. We know it's a waste of time. So why do we do this? We do this to try and fulfill our core need for certainty, okay? For safety. We want to know for a fact that the person who receives the email is not going to be offended. We want to know for a fact that our boss is going to like what we've done. We want to know for a fact that our book is going to be well received, that our piece of art is going to be loved. So that's why we have this perfectionistic tendency to fulfill our need for certainty, for safety, to ensure we won't be in pain. Now, the question, the $100 question, is how can we create this feeling of certainty and safety differently? And the answer, my friends, is, drumroll, with our thoughts. I know you don't like when I say that the problem is in your mind, but in this case, it is. Okay, with your thoughts. With thoughts like, I will be okay no matter what. I have my own back. I'm allowed to make mistakes. Mistakes teach you stuff. I can always apologize. I can always course correct. Okay, these are some of my thoughts that I often think. Okay, I can always apologize if what I say is misinterpreted. Another one that I use a lot is when I create content, right? Because I've learned to create a lot of content. What used to take me hours and days before. Like making those podcasts used to take me so much longer, and creating an Instagram post as well used to take me so much longer because I was thinking about all the different people who could misinterpret what I say. And a thought that helps me is the right people will understand. The people who are my soulmate will get what I mean, will give me the benefit of the doubt. People can always ask questions, but no matter what, I repeat, I have my own back. I can always learn. Now, thoughts like this help, and you can come up with your own thoughts that will help you get rid of perfectionism and create more time. Because it's a myth to say, oh, I don't have time for my dreams. No, you can create more time if you get rid of your all or nothing tendency and perfectionistic tendencies. Okay? Or maybe not get rid of them completely. I am definitely not perfectly healed, but that's fine because we're messy human beings. But okay, so I've got 5 ways for you to create more time on top of changing your thoughts. Number 1, choose what's essential and release the shoulds. Simone Seol has taught me something really important. She says, you don't have to answer all messages. You can just answer when you feel excited to answer, when you feel called to answering. Many problems will fix themselves without you getting involved. And you might not believe me, but that's true. One of my clients was telling me the other day about how one of her employees called with a problem, and she said, I'll have to wait until I'm back from holiday. And the person on the other line said, okay, we'll find a way. And they found a way without her. So what does it mean for you to choose what's essential and release the shoulds? You got to question what everything that's on your schedule. Is it really essential, or are you doing it because you think you should? What can help you here is reading the book, The Essentialism, and I think I loved this one more, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is really, really good for getting you to think about what you could trash. Okay, number 2, realizing when you have crossed the line into perfect land. When your energy shifts and you start being like, well, it's different for everyone, but for me, it's like I get jittery and I get obsessive and I get like shaky a little bit. I know when I feel like this that I've crossed the line into perfect land, and what I do from now on is it's useless. Number 3, setting a timer or a date or a constraint. Like I won't let myself spend more than X amount of minutes on this email. Or I am going to get this done by the end of the month, no more. And to have the integrity to follow up on that. Or like sometimes I give my clients exercises to do and I tell them you've got to set a limit of time, otherwise you could spend all weekend on it. Same thing with artists. Artists have eventually to stop because their piece of art could be worked on forever, but is that what they want, or do they want to make progress? So you've got to set a timer, a date, or a constraint. Number 4, once you've done that, you've got to live with the discomfort of messy. Because it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel awful. It's going to feel unsafe even. Your nervous system is going to panic. Because that's not what you're used to, and your primitive brain wants to make sure that there's not going to be pain, that there's not going to be disapproval or rejection at the other end of the line. You've got to practice calming your nervous system down, and there are many techniques that I teach in Brave and Bold for this, one of them being thinking different thoughts, like the ones I shared earlier. Another one that I love to use is this is what they get. I took this one from Book Castillo, the life coach. Let's say I create a podcast for you guys and I've spent enough time on it. I don't think it's perfect yet. I just think to myself, this is what they get. That's it. And live with the discomfort. And breathe. Breathe through the discomfort and it always passes. And it seems the next day always seems like a smaller thing. Okay? So if you're a perfectionist or an all or nothing thinker or both, because often they're one and the same cocktail, you'll want to come to another drum roll because they're fun. You'll want to come to Courage Camp. Courage Camp is going to take place on the last week of March, and what's going to happen is every day for a week, I'm going to coach you for an hour. I was going to call it Confidence Camp, but I decided to go with Courage thanks to Debbie Millman. She said on Brené Brown's podcast, she was talking about the difference between confidence and courage and, quote, the act of being courageous, taking that first step, is much more critical to a successful outcome than the notion of feeling confident while engaged in the process. Courage requires faith in your ability before you experience any repeated success. And I loved that. It's so true. So often I haven't felt confident before taking a big leap. I just took the big leap feeling super messy and uncomfortable and inadequate. And that's what's allowed me to build my success up to this point. Being willing to not be confident and to grow that confidence as you fail or as you fall flat on your face and look lame and move through it and survive through the feelings of lameness until you start feeling confident. So many people tell me like, oh, I'm not ready for X, Y, and Z. I'm not ready. But if you wait to be ready, what does it even mean? What does it even mean? If you wait to be ready, you're going to spend way too much time in your life waiting instead of creating the exciting, adventurous, epic, fulfilling life that, I don't know about you, but I think we should all be living. Okay, it's a choice. You don't have to. You can stay in your comfort zone. But if you're listening to this podcast, something tells me that it's important for you to grow and to lead a meaningful life. But for a meaningful life to happen, you gotta be willing to step outside, to step into the unknown, and that takes a lot of courage. So that's what I'm gonna coach you on during Courage Camp. Basically, it's gonna be an hour every day, sometimes longer. It's gonna start with some teaching, like 15 minutes of teaching, and then I'm gonna pull some of you to the quote-unquote stage, sit you in the hot seat, and coach you on different topics so that you finish the week feeling like you have a boost in self-belief and you are ready to be bolder and braver in your daily life. Okay, and also this is the perfect opportunity if you loved the Fearless Decision Making workshop, or if you want to experience what it's like to work with me, if you've been interested in my content but have not been wanting to take the big commitment, the big 6-month commitment that Brave and Bold is, then this is perfect. We're going to be together for a week and you get to see the power of coaching, how coaching can be transformative, not just when you get coached, but also, and sometimes especially if you watch other people getting coached. So I'm excited to see you. You can go grab your tickets as soon as now on selfgrowthnerds.com/couragecamp. All right, have a beautiful week, my friends. Embrace your messiness, embrace to suck, embrace looking lame, because that's part of a big, brave, beautiful, bold life. Bye! You just listened to the Self-Growth Nerds podcast. Make sure to subscribe and to find me on Instagram at Self-Growth Nerds. If you want individual help developing the confidence to create a more meaningful and exciting life, visit selfgrowthnerds.com today to learn how. Finally, I want to thank my friend Etienne Galano for editing this, and I want to thank you, kind-hearted souls, for growing into your truest, most courageous selves every day and making this world a better, more beautiful place. My name is Marie, and I will talk to you next week.